I can't even do it. Hey, welcome. This is KTLR, Salem Alive Youth Church Radio.
That's right.
We play all the Christian hits.
You're on the radio. Did we not tell you, David?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
This is I Can Only Imagine. Who sings that?
By Mercy Me.
I Can Only
we say that?
Imagine. Oh, are we allowed to
Do you have
say
the rights for that?
They're one of our sponsors.
Oh,
know.
cool.
I wish.
This song's brought to you by Mercy Me.
Alive Youth Church, welcome to the AYC podcast. I'm Carson.
I'm Jonathan, and we have a very special guest with us today. This is a good friend, but also ex-youth pastor, Mr. David Johnson, with us today.
Hello. That was good. Thank you.
David is also a parent of teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Two of them.
Two.
Two of them.
That's cool. So you moved from California to Oregon.
to here. When the rest of my family, or my grandparents moved here, and then the rest of us all moved here. And so I lived in California long enough to be able to say I'm from California.
There it is.
But I can't claim that I grew up there because I was
Gotcha.
only there till 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There you go.
But I still have that California street cred. So, I'm blonde.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. So
Got that surfer hair.
I try.
You're a concrete surfer, right?
Correct.
Hey yo.
Correct. Hey.
What does that
That's
mean?
fun.
It's different than skateboarding, surf skate. So it started out as surf training. It's a lot of surfers would train in the off season.
Okay.
It's gotten a little bit more popular lately because it's funner than longboarding.
More
So
fun.
it's like surfing on the street, and it's best way to put it. It's different. It's not just cruising. It's surf movements.
Is
pop-ups
this
and
like
stuff like
the
that.
Z Boys, like Lords of the Dogtown? Did they kind of
They
start that?
started some of when the Z Boys came out in Dogtown, they would actually, skating was looked at like street surfing. So the ones that kind of coined that idea of that let's go to the street because these waves break all day. But the technology didn't exist yet to have the same surf movements. But a lot of the stuff that surf skaters do is emulating what they were doing in the early days.
That's
so
cool.
those bigger wheels, that kind of stuff. So but
I saw these like special trucks that like Kickstarter has because they're not like I don't think necessarily out yet for like production, but they're like the surf trucks.
Yeah.
So like when you turn, it actually turns your entire
exactly
board
yeah.
like surfing.
So
Those look like fun.
Waterborne has they're a company that hey Waterborne, they're a
Shout
company
out.
that
They're
shout out
actually one of
Waterborne.
our sponsors.
One of our
Shout out
sponsors as
Waterborne.
well, as well as LaCroix.
And LaCroix.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. They make surf skate trainers that are trucks, but like brands like Carver. I ride mostly Hamboards. So yeah.
Sweet.
Best concrete waves in Salem.
Lancaster Mall parking lot is good.
No, it's not called that anymore. What's it called?
Oh shoot.
Willamette Town Center.
Willamette Town Center.
Yeah.
Mall,
With a
sorry.
helmet.
Yeah, with a helmet, please.
With a helmet.
Oh.
With a
Always.
helmet, please, if we would.
Elbow, knee pads, the
some
whole
kind
thing.
of groin protector.
Bubble
Yep.
wrap.
Bubble wrap. That's great. Really, anywhere that has what can be kind of mock swells in the pavement, where you can kind of surf
Up,
and
down,
you can
left and
carve
right
out.
kind of
Yeah,
thing?
Yeah. As opposed
Okay.
to just straight downhill is lame on a surf skate.
Yeah.
And
And
just straight
dangerous.
flat is not quite as fun. But stuff where you've got kind of dips and swells, that's the best. So
Have
that way
you
can
have
carve
you
out.
encountered security or
I
police
have.
officers?
I have. I got kicked off of. I got kicked out of a parking lot. A cop came up and said, "Hey, we can't have you skating here." And I said, "Dude, I'm like 40.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna break anything."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Sorry, can't have you here." And I was like, "All right, that's fine." And then I got kicked out of the top level of the library parking. Their parkade there. It has a natural incline that's almost like kind of a mock pool because it inclines on two sides, so you can carve up both sides.
Kind of like a half pipe kind
Yeah,
of
a little bit.
Huh.
And so I got kicked out of there too.
Dang.
So.
Skateboarding is a crime.
Apparently.
Bad boy youth pastor.
No, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But yeah.
See, I don't skate. Like if I were, that's probably what I would do. More just cruise, longboard.
Yeah.
I did a little season of longboarding, but I remember I learned this today. Popsicle board, is that what you called it?
Yep.
Popsicle stick board.
It's like it's the standard skateboard.
Yeah, when you think skateboard, Tony Hawk.
Just think that's the board that has been basically designed now for street skating.
Okay.
So it's usually like, I don't know, 31 inches long, 31 to 33.
Yeah.
And it goes like 7.5 to 8.5. So.
I had one of those. I think I was probably older, middle school, maybe even high school, but probably 7th, 8th grade. Had one of those. Probably picked it up at Walmart and was trying to get into it a little bit.
Rubber
I remember
trucks.
first ollie went just straight at the sidewalk, went up over the sidewalk, up from the street onto the sidewalk.
You ollied up on a sidewalk?
Yeah, landed
First
it.
time ever doing it?
No. I skated around a little bit,
yeah,
practice
yeah.
just some. I remember actually practicing on the grass, the ollie.
Oh, yeah,
first.
exactly, yeah.
And then I was like, okay. And so I going straight at the sidewalk right in front of my house, ollied up on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Was so pumped that I landed. I threw my hands in the air to celebrate, and the board went straight from under my feet, and I just tailbone. And it was the last. That's the day. That's the day I quit.
Yeah,
and that's not joking. I quit. I was like, that
That's so
tailbone.
scary.
That sucks, yeah.
At the beginning of the pandemic, I worked at Guitar Center, and they had laid off
Another
some
one of our
us,
sponsors, Guitar Center.
Yeah, thanks, Guitar Center.
allegedly.
Yeah.
And so me and some of my friends were like picking up like longboarding and skating. So we went to the Kaiser Skate Park, and we had been doing this for a couple months. And I had like learned to ollie and was like trying to like do a grind on kind of this little platform. So I finally ollied up it and got on it, but I was leaning too far back, and it was probably like 8 inches, 6-8 inches high. So I ollie up that, get on it. I'm leaning too far back. Board goes flying right in front of me, and I fly back, and I smack my head on the pavement.
Yeah.
And I had a
Is that when you first started getting your stutter?
yeah, pretty much. I wasn't wearing a helmet, so that's why I say wear a helmet.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies was severely injured when we were skating, not wearing a helmet. So as soon as I hit my head, I got up, grabbed my board, and was so like paranoid because I had just smacked my head, the back of my head.
Yeah.
I got in my car and drove straight home. And I was reading the back of license plates to make sure that I should
Stay
still
sharp.
see.
Beat the concussion. Yeah.
And so I
Good.
didn't have a concussion. I was
awesome.
just it was all in my head.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
funny.
getting an injury, I mean, I broke my wrist skateboarding, and you get an injury,
Ew.
and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is legit. I have a broken bone.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's actually when you actually get some kind of injury, it's like credit.
It's an
like good
achievement.
thing.
That's what makes the pros is the overcome the fear of injury and then to persevere through injury.
Well,
It's
and
like
that's
still
actually
wear a
what I
helmet.
love about skateboarding is that these guys, to land the tricks that you see in the magazines and on the Instagram videos, they've been practicing that over and over again, and they've hurt themselves
Oh,
over
yeah.
and over again. So the tenacity of skateboarding is what I love about
now bring
That's
that home. Turn that into a sermon.
Oh, I've written it.
That's right. I preached that many times.
I love watching Nitro Circus, like Travis
yeah, yeah,
Pastrana
yeah.
and
Yeah.
those guys.
That's not one that's our sponsor.
Yeah, yes.
I don't know enough about that show to
They-
recommend it. So,
But they do more like BMX stuff.
Yeah.
And the dude, like, one of these guys was the first person to ever land like a quadruple backflip on a bike.
That's crazy.
But he attempted it the first time and like broke his shoulder,
Yeah.
broke a leg because he landed like super bad, and then came back like a year and a half later and landed wrong the first time after healing and was like super sketched, did it again, and then landed it.
That's so cool.
Went through all that and then
That's
landed
so
a
cool.
quadruple backflip on a bike. That is
So-
sketch.
growing up, were you into skating and things? Or I guess let's do this. What's your journey? You moved here to Salem.
Moved to Salem.
Your grandparents were missionaries, but were you always kind of a church kid, following the Lord? What's your story and your journey with Jesus?
I was not. My family, we went to church at a small Baptist church. My grandparents were that attended, and they were kind of the Christian leaders of the family. Right? My grandparents, and rightfully so, they were incredible. But my grandpa was known in the Baptist circle. So when I was young, I was generally the way people would know who I was. They say, "Oh, you're Dr. Ray's grandson."
Sure.
As a young man, that bothered me, because I felt like nobody knew who I was outside of my grandparents and their legacy. And so, now I'm very proud of it. Right?
That's cool.
That's cool.
I actually read an article about my grandpa where there was a big, just this kind of debacle that happened with the mission organization in the Baptist church. and it talked about how this man, Gordon Ray, stood up and called everybody to prayer. And across the state, the whatever meeting room they were at, everybody went to their knees and just began to repent of pride and these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my grandfather.
Wow.
But as a young man, I was frustrated by that, the fact that I didn't feel very known outside of my grandparents. And
young people are always maybe I shouldn't restrict this to just young people, but I think we're always looking to find our identity, who we are and how we fit in. And then, we want to be known.
Yeah. We want to have some identity. We don't want to, and I didn't want to feel like just another person in the room. It was like I want people to know who I am.
Right.
So I, not feeling known, not feeling like there was much intimacy in that way. Plus the fact that at home we looked like a Christian family, but inside the home was a lot of turmoil, a lot of anger, a lot of abuse, and so all of those things sort of combined. Made me pretty resentful at the church, and made me pretty resentful of Jesus and my understanding of who God was. And so when I was 13 and, I was introduced to drugs when I was about 13. And back in the day, what you could get your hands on that was cheap, it was called crank back in the day. But I think, it has changed names, but it was basically like a cheap form of meth. And got my hands on that when I was 13 and loved it.
That's where you started?
That's where I started when I was 13.
Wow.
I had an older friend that introduced me to it, and it made me feel strong and brave and fearless. And that was kind of my introduction to that world. And so I slowly got more and more disinterested in school and disinterested in anything else than figuring out ways to make myself not feel, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Dropped out of school when I was 14, and kind of just did my own thing. My dad was, at that point, I think it was around there that he wasn't with us and not living in the house anymore because of some things blew up with him and my mom. My sister was working and supporting herself, and I was finding places to sleep, and whether that was a friend's house in the garage or a couch or at my grandparents'. I lived with my grandparents for a little while. Lived with my cousin for a little while. Actually crashed with a teacher for a little while. Found a girlfriend who was far older than me when I was about 15, 16. And all that time just sort of wandering, just trying to figure things out. And but I will say, all the while, there were adult youth workers who were pouring into me, right? So there was a guy, give a shout out to a guy named Mike Speeton. There was another guy named Keith Swanson who was a youth counselor who, in the midst of all these things going on, God was using them to invest in me and to sort of speak into my future. I didn't realize it at the time, but these guys were this formidable force of what wow, this is what godly adult men look like. Again, I didn't recognize it at the time, but I had this longing for years of, I really wish my dad would I was longing for a father figure, right?
Wow.
And God supplied those father figures, but I didn't recognize it until years later. I said, well, it's not that I didn't have a father, it's God supplied me fathers. And I can reflect on that now as, I wished my dad would have stepped up and sort of helped me through these things. Generally, I was an angry kid, but angry kids generally are looking for, they're angry because they want someone to help. Really, the anger is help me, right? And it was just masked with a bunch of other things. And so these guys, I never went to youth group one time ever, but Mike was my youth pastor because he invested in me even though I never went to his youth group.
That's crazy.
I love that. Like, I don't know if we're there or not. I wish I could say we were, but just kind of thinking through that. I've always said that I want to be the youth pastor of like Salem, Salem, Kaiser, Independence, Dallas, whatever. Like, not just of West Salem Foursquare Church. Like, I want to consider every middle school and high school student ours. Like, that's what we're gonna love and pastor, and like that's cool. This guy Mike, just knowing you, recognize you, and saying, I'm not giving up on you.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah, he was a great guy, and you know, he ended up marrying me and my wife. He officiated our wedding, and you know, has been a friend ever since. You know, that role has changed a little bit over the years now that I'm older, but yeah, it was actually really cool. The guy who I had a youth counselor when I was young ended up, you know, you do things, you end up in an office and you got a file and these things, and I remember there was a moment when I was in his office and he was reading my stuff, and he says, so are you this? Are you these? He asked me the question, do you feel like you're this? And I, you know, I'm kind of slouching like, no, you know, trying to be Mr. Badass, right? And I remember he slams the paperwork, which wasn't a lot of paperwork, right? But just enough. You know how it sounds when you say,
Yeah.
And it kind of I kind of looked up, right? And he goes, well, let's find out who you are. And he became this dear mentor of mine.
So you're saying other people were saying, this is
well,
who you
on my
are
paper,
according to
there
the
on
file.
papers on file, there were these things. You know, nothing like I was never in jail or locked up or anything, but there were these diagnoses, and he says, no, let's find out who you are.
Wow.
And I never forgot that. And I actually told that story. I got hired to speak somewhere when I was pastoring, and one of his family members, who was a young person, was in that crowd. And I saw him at a Starbucks, and I went to him. I said, hey, listen, I don't know if you know this, but you had this profound impact on my life.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to tell you, I don't know if you know this, but you had a profound impact on my life because you spoke, and it really spoke to this person. I won't say the name, but this person in my family who's a young person. He said, so isn't that, and he's a believer as well, this guy, and he says, isn't that cool how God used that?
Wow.
You know?
That's
so
crazy.
It was a really cool thing. It was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I got to do this, you know, you did this for me, and then God took it and continued to use it, you know, and so it was a really cool thing.
I think that's for youth ministry. You know, a lot of times we won't maybe necessarily see the big picture. We won't get to see what maybe Scripture would call as like the fruit. We're maybe just a seed planting ministry or watering, you know, whatever it is, and I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah,
you know, like I'm okay with the role that we in the youth ministry get to play and be a part of. And man, now that I'm on that side where I have two kids. You know, I think of here's Carson and Peyton. I'm going to use their names because Carson's sitting here, but obviously I could list out many of our leadership team and our students, the influence they are having on my kids already at you know 2 and 4 years old, and how, like you said, how God does that. Like He's blessed me. I'm so grateful for what I get to do, the mission and the call that He's given me here at this church with the students. And now seeing the role that they're playing in teaching my kids in kids' church and even just hanging out and seeing them, and it's God's plan. You know, I never pictured this.
Oh no,
God's plan.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Do you agree with that, Carson?
Yeah.
Do you think it's God's plan?
God's plan, dude.
That's good. God's
Drake.
plan.
So, but what was the turnaround point for you then? Like, was it this file moment of just like this
no,
guy?
I didn't recognize that at the moment. You know, I was still young, and
Yeah.
it happened. I actually, you know, I built up a relationship with this guy, and it was awesome, you know. But it wasn't until I was 17, I just got kind of used and thrown away by this, you know, older girl. That was kind of a crazy deal, and I was confused, you know, because she was in her 20s and I'm still a kid, you know, and I thought this was marriage. I thought we were going to, you know, whatever. Wasn't the case. And so I was confused. I was hurt. But I went to a party at Shemeketa that I heard was going to have liquor and college girls. So I was like, heck yeah, I'll go to that. Sounds good to me. Alcohol and women, you know, awesome. And so I was, you know, I went and I went in, and I realized really quickly that I had been fooled. This was a Campus Crusade outreach. There was DC Talk playing. There was people playing games, and coming from growing up in the church, I was like, that's a lot of casseroles and Christian music. I know what this is.
Do you know who DC Talk is?
Yeah. DC Talk, dude. That's Toby Mac OG.
Yeah.
His original.
I wonder if
I didn't know that until like 2 years ago, and I've been going to youth group since I was old enough to
Oh,
go to
man,
youth group.
that was
I didn't know that Toby
bread-
Mac was from DC
Okay,
Talk.
bread
yeah,
and
that
butter.
until
was
a few months
bread
ago.
and
like they
butter.
were revolutionary in the Christian
Big
music
deal.
industry. It
Big
was all
deal.
of a sudden like,
Yeah.
what?
Well, guys like
Christian rap
again,
It was
guys
yeah,
like him.
upbeat
Yeah.
Christian music
Yeah.
Yeah.
that steered away from
Newsboys
the
and
hymns and slow
even
stuff.
even Reliant K, guys like
Yeah.
that coming in.
Reliant K,
yeah,
the
yeah,
pop
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
punk
so
Christian
I,
music
okay,
stuff,
just
yeah.
we've never done this. I don't know if you're doing this on Apple Music, Spotify, if you're watching on YouTube, but like if you know who, if matter of fact, just tell us if you've heard of DC Talk or not.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
And what's
is
your
there
favorite
comments? I don't
DC
even
Talk
know.
song? What's the favorite song?
We'll,
right?
we'll
Yeah.
post
There's a-
we'll post a poll on Instagram that asks
Yeah.
if you know who
Yeah.
DC,
DC
Talk
Talk.
is.
And it will
before this
age
podcast.
you.
Yes.
Like if depending on what song you remember
Yep.
from your youth group days. Yeah. So
Anyway, so
It's
you're
a
at the
big,
you're at
big
this what you
house.
thought was party.
well, there's
instead.
a lot of rooms there, I think.
In a big table.
In a big table, I think. Yeah.
I love
yeah.
inside jokes.
Yeah.
Love to be a part of one sometime.
Yeah.
Um,
But me too. Yeah. So I went to this party and I was ready to bail out because I realized this was a Christian outreach and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want any part of this. And I looked over and there was a girl standing on some chairs and she was telling how to play this game. She was, youth group style, college, these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is that?
Yeah.
My buddy that was with, he says, that's Bethany. She's kind of earthy and I was like, sweet. So I went over and I said, do you know her? He says, yeah, I can introduce you. And she was going to Shemeketa and I remember, I could tell you exactly what she was wearing. She had a striped shirt on, faded jeans, flare legs because it was that era. She gave me a hug and she said, we are so glad you're here.
wow.
And then she walked away. And at the time, I was like, that was the warmest embrace I had gotten at a church thing before, right? Like
Wow.
this sort of like, there was this warm, and she was, Bethany had a completely different upbringing than I had. Completely healthy family. She grew up leadership in youth group. Back in her day, it was, they did puppet ministry for kids church, like all this stuff, right? She, just completely different. She was here. She went to Bible college and then went to Shemeketa. And so she was there serving, and so, basically the moment I saw her, I was like, I'm young and stupid. And I'm like, is this what love is,
Sure.
But I got to know her. And this is a cautionary tale, by the way. Please don't do this.
Yeah.
Please don't do this if you're a girl.
Dangerous.
Don't date people like this. They're bad. But not really. But God loves them. But you don't need to. But no. But I was enamored with her, and for me, it was like, okay, this might be a reason to get clean and start to understand. She really introduced me to God's love and reintroduced me to the love of Jesus and what that looked like. And I had never seen anybody working that I recognized working. I'd never seen Jesus working in somebody's life like that before. I'd never seen somebody so alive, loving Jesus, and I was attracted to it, right? I was like, it scared me too, like I tried to drag her down and I was not great for her in the beginning because I didn't know how to lead or be a good man, but there was a point we started dating and she caught me using and she said, you got to choose between me and your addictions. And I was like, okay. And I didn't clean up at that point, but it was sort of the stepping stone of changing my life and with her saying, if we're going to have any kind of long-term relationship, you've got to get to know Christ. You have to submit your life to God. And so I started on that path and building a relationship with Jesus I'd never had before, growing up around it. Then we got married, and when we found out we were pregnant with my daughter, that was the turning point.
Yeah.
That was the moment when I realized, okay, I can't put my kids through what I went through with my dad. And I just basically was like, God, if this is real, you've got to tell me. And when I was holding my daughter in the delivery room, I had that moment where I just felt this piece of like, this is it. And that was the catalyst. That was we started, we started pursuing churches. We ended up at Church on the Hill. About 2 weeks in, I went to the head pastor and I said, hey, I'm here. and I need to know how to be a husband. I need to know how to be a father.
Mm-hmm.
I want to serve. Tell me what you want me to do. And he said, well, I want to introduce you to my son, Brock, and come to this thing on Tuesday night. And it was a college ministry. They were prepping to launch a college ministry. Go to this thing. They need volunteers. I went, got to know Brock, and he became sort of this surrogate father to me, and he would run me through. He gave me books to read. He would run me through ministry education, knowing that I was a high school dropout. I'd never, I had no formal education, but he put me to work, and he both showed me what it looked like to pastor people while he was pastoring me.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And there were rough spots. It wasn't always easy. It was a little bit like grinding, a rock, until it's shiny, right? But so there were rough patches and things that weren't easy. But he was really this force in my life that really taught me both what it looked like to pastor, but also put this passion in me to work with students. Kind of had this vision, right, of maybe this is why, maybe I can invest my pain instead of soaking in it, right?
Wow.
Investing it. And I was able to do that and ended up, working with college ministry, got into worship. Music is in my background, so I started doing music, and eventually started interning. And then when Brock moved on and there was an opening, they hired me as a youth pastor. And so I ended up, this kid, that had no business working in a church, ended up youth pastoring, and I did that for about
10 years.
About 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So to Church on the Hill's credit, they gave me a chance and took a risk on me, and it changed my life.
They did. They took a risk on you, but I would say too, like, just to affirm you, not that you need it, but like, you did the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
you had those pivotal moments. Obviously, you were lost and you started to get back on track, but you're the one that approached and said, like, I know God's doing something in my life, but I need someone to show me how. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's God's plan. That's how He uses us. Like, that's Jesus. We know that God came to earth as human in the form of Jesus. Yeah. But now I think He continues to reveal who He is through humans with humanity filled with the Holy Spirit, and you recognize, I need this. I see this. And so, like, that's why that's a big learning piece for all of us. Like, oh gosh. Because I said that too, and I don't mean to just make this all about whatever, but like, I remember the same thing when I got married. I grew up in a very good home. My dad, parents, phenomenal. But I grew up and all of a sudden it was like, you're a husband and a dad. And it's like, how do I do this?
What does that look like?
I have to lead? What does that mean? And you need those people. Oh, yeah. You need people before you.
Big time. Big time.
What do I, teach me?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Incredible. Well, David, I can't tell you how much this ministry, I can speak on behalf of the ministry, but I have to speak for myself too. Just how much I appreciate your support, your continuous investment and prayer for our students and our leaders. You've spoken a few times. This Saturday you're speaking
I'll be here.
Lions Den coming up. Guys, high school, young adults, Lions Den, this is the 23rd of April, 9:30 a.m. here at West Salem Foursquare Church. Be here, men's event. Carson's vision and dream is killing it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Be here. It's just
hear from David.
Tons of fun, and David's speaking, so don't miss out. It's gonna be great.
Love it.
But thanks for being on, dude. I loved hearing your story. And just seeing what God's done in your life, because I know it gives me hope and gives others hope. So
it's awesome.
Thanks for sharing, dude.
No, my pleasure.
Be here, church, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. You'll see David, Bethany, and the kids. Come up, say hi to them. Sing your favorite DC Talk song.
That's right.
To him.
And then come to youth group after church at 7 p.m. Alive Youth Church.
I think you guys are doing, you're doing, I Can Only Imagine, right? You're doing that?
We could do it.
You do, yeah, I think you are.
We could do it. I wish I could make that our closing
song.
Shout
to the Lord, all the earth, let us
AYC, thanks for tuning in.
Power and majesty, praise to our King.